Well, hello, that's me again. Today is August 7th, 2023. It's Happy Monday. Happy Monday, everybody. And let's start with things which, well, how can I even describe them? Let's put it this way, the point of the desperation. And when we begin to look at what is happening right now, and we are witnessing and living through the quickening, obviously, everything accelerates to an incredible velocity, or speed rather, in terms of the international relations and the remaking of the world order, using the Samuel Huntington's old title from his seminal book, which was wrong on so many points. We have the situation which also combines in itself not only objective laws of not only physics or mathematics or economics for that matter, or social laws, but also the moral laws and also the issues of the psychology, if not outright psychiatry. And when people begin to kind of dig deeper into this hole of where we are, today, this whole state of the complete mayhem around primarily combined West, we can say that, apart from listening to me, I want to highly recommend again listening to people like my friend Larry Johnson, like of course Ray McGovern, like Douglas McGregor, like Scott Ritter, about who have a good understanding of basically the mechanism or mechanisms which are engaged in this particular tremendous, unprecedented historical change. And when I speak about psychiatry and when I speak about psychology, I want to reiterate rather, the point which I make constantly. You have to continuously expose people who are behind the catastrophe which unfolded, not only for the combined West, but for many people in the other world, in other parts of the world. But let's start with the psychiatric issue, because basically what is being driven or drives those people who are active participants of this catastrophe are, of course, issue of the desperation, envy, jealousy, and I cannot even describe and dig deeper into their psychology. And of course, here is one example. And this is example when Mr. Peskov actually had to correct, guess what, New York Times, which mistranslated his words. It's not mistranslated, they never mistranslate. Basically, I am on record, you can quote me. Normal people do not work in media, mainstream media. Especially in combined West, there are no normal people with honor, integrity, any ethics. They are whores, literally and figuratively speaking. And here was the question that they mistranslated him, that Russia and Mr. Peskov in particular do not care about democracy, whatever this completely discredited term is being used nowadays in the West. But again, this is New York Times. I won't use it even as a toilet paper in the times of the desperate need and horrible crisis, because you can get actually the brain cancer just using it as a toilet paper, let alone reading it. But here it is. Speaking to Russia's Putin media on Sunday, Peskov said his words were conveyed incorrectly by New York Times. While the New York Times version of the quote implies that Russia does not hold democratic elections, Peskov actually said that when Putin's popularity and the consolidation of society due to the conflict are considered, it can be said with confidence that if Putin is nominated, he will be re-elected with a huge advantage. Basically, Peskov stated here obvious thing. The support for Putin and his approval ratings are through the stratosphere. There's nothing which any Western politician, or let alone prostitute journals, or prostitutes as they are, ever saw in their lives, and especially when they pretend that they know how to run things. And of course they lie because of that. That's what they do. They do lying. But of course, in this desperation and hatred of Russia, and New York Times is just the Russophobic outlet, and all of those outlets, be this Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, they all belong to all different orgs of the Washington lobbies, if you wish. And None of them are free media. Basically, it's the propaganda outlets. It's a mini truth. But here it is. That's what also drives them completely nuts. And Bloomberg, yet another, basically the, how to say it, sewer, they even have to admit that Russia expects 11 billion energy windfall in 2023 despite the cap. It was 3 days ago, and again, you know what, at this stage you have to ask the question, didn't we tell you about this? Well, obviously they never listen, because people who have basically the level of the high school understanding of the world, that's what pretty much any graduate of the journalism school gets in the West, or for that matter in Russia, they still think that they understand the world. They don't. They have no clue what they're talking about. And let us go back now to the more serious issues. For example, getting back to our goals, so to speak, which are operations and special military operation. We'll start with, of course, Mr. David Wu, who is a renowned economist and who is worked for the International Monetary Fund for many years. And he gave 2 days ago the interview, the speak on the underground, going underground at RT. He made some interesting, not admissions, he stated it openly that Europe suffers while US tries bringing down Russia at all costs, and those costs for the United States are growing exponentially. Europe is done. I am on the record. You can quote me on that. Europe is done as the economic geopolitical entity. It doesn't exist for all intents and purposes as the sovereign entity. It's just basically a U.S. colony, and they will continue to decline. However, for example, Mr. Macron and his Chihuahua, which is known as France, they try to also, you know, pretend that they play some kind of the special role, which of course they are really nobodies militarily speaking, and economically they are, well, except for few basically high-tech sectors of economy, obviously the Airbus being one of them, the most important, and of course their, however small, nuclear deterrent. The rest of it is just, yeah, as I already on record, you can go to France and see it for yourself. It's becoming the third world country, and actually it is probably, for all intents and purposes, is the third world country by now. And here it is. France supplies long-range missiles to Ukraine. Ukrainian forces apparently already use Scalp EGs in strikes on civilian infrastructure in Crimea. Well, yeah, of course they did. And fact is, when you talk about it, that France supplied Scalp. France was supplying Scalp for a long time now. And the British version of the Scalp missile is Storm Shadow. Well, guess what? The huge portion of this Storm Shadow is made by French. And so in this particular case, there's nothing new. And these are how desperate they are. And while I am by no means an Africanist, I'm not pretending to know Africa, and I do not pretend to understand what is going on there. But obviously, when you look attentively at what is going on now with Niger, and again, you can listen to excellent commentaries by Larry Johnson today, specifically on that matter. And when you look attentively at the plans of Europe with the building this gas line, and of course with France buying the uranium for $11, as instead of to the market price $252 from Niger. So could it be that the Russians serving their revenge cold? As, you know, as that proverbial dish, are possible, but it's obvious that actually the Russia and China, they started helping to actually the African countries to really reconsider their colonial arrangements, because France still owns the Sahel, you know, at least they economically. And now when suddenly you have the situation with the Niger and the issue with the uranium, they're basically the jewel in the crown of the few remaining high-tech industries in France, especially its nuclear power generation, is endowed. And that means what? The energetic death of obviously their friends, not just Germany. Germany is that basically energetically and as a result economically. It's already well reported a few days ago by Reuters that actually it's a precipitous decline. Germany already lost 7.1% from the start of this year of the consumption of the energy, and it's gonna accelerate only. So when you look at this, yeah, we have many other spheres, many other sectors, especially economics, where we have this war. But I want to kind of go back to, you know what, I'm sorry for quoting myself. And again, I've been calling on that since a long time ago. And again, if you remember the title of my first book, The Myopia of the Strategic Planning on the Part of the United States, and of course my 2019, kind of venturing a little bit in the operational issues and operational, both concepts and in the basic operations or how they are calculated. It's just basic intro. It's specifically was designed for people with minimal military and mathematics and physics background. But look at this, what I wrote actually in this was already 5 years ago, and how this actually is happening today, and why it is important. Here we are, and do not forget, I want to, before I go and quote myself from the book, I also want to make sure that you understand that what I do here is not some kind of the rants or talks. I want to present some kind of the educational value for people, and that is why once in a while I have to repeat things, considering that very many people, not all, but very many people who are part of my channel and who listen to me, and majority of them, overwhelming majority of them, are good people who want to learn and who want to know. They do not have a specific military background, and it's worth repeating for them or to them some fundamental key points which will allow them down the road to make their own conclusions. So in this case, as I already stated from the inception of this channel, it is educational primarily. It is not just sitting here and giving the reviews of the geopolitical situation, albeit it is obviously part of it. And so here it is. Let's go back to my book, The Real Revolution in Military Affairs, and let's quote a little bit. What is the real revolution, as was stated by Andrew Kripnevich. And this is a definition. And Andrew Kripnevich gave a general and pretty valid definition of the revolution in military affairs. What is a military revolution? It is what occurs when the application of new technologies into a significant number of military systems combines with innovative operational concepts. Keep in mind, operational concepts and organizational adaptation in a way that fundamentally alters the character and conduct of conflict. It does so by producing a dramatic increase, often an order of magnitude or greater, in the combat potential and military effectiveness of armed forces. Military revolutions comprise 4 elements. Attention, again, technological change, system development, and operational innovation and organizational adaptation. I specifically singled out, underlined, and highlighted this, why it is crucial, especially organizational adaptation and operational innovation, because this is the only way you conduct the war. And if you remember, a few videos ago, I spoke about this article in Joint Force Quarterly by Mr. Mark Milley, who suddenly wants to actually have a general staff, essentially. Why so? Because the Joint Chiefs of Staff as it exists, especially the services of the U.S. Armed Forces and essentially NATO, how they interact, it's not conducive for fighting a real war. If you look at actually at every single field manual of the U.S. Army or U.S. Armed Forces for that matter, largely, how they look at things, those operational concepts, and especially what are operational concepts, what is operational art, and it's how you run the basically larger formations. This is the tying link between the tactics and the strategy. So it's not basically rigged or developed to fight serious combined arms, or as we call it today, rather, if we kind of get the combined arms fit into this larger application of the violence, which is warfare. It's called multi-domain, and how they interact. That's the new combined arms, everything from the ground forces to submarines to satellites to air forces and so on. And that's when you need to have special organization. You need to have the special organs of the combat control, which in Russian case is general staff. And United States doesn't have general staff. It has the separate services which meet at the level of the Joint Chiefs, and then they fight for the money to make money, basically, for themselves, not to mention the fact that most of US generals, obviously, upon retirement, they already have those sinecures ready for them in the all kinds of the firms of the military-industrial complex. And, of course, again, you cannot change cultural reality. No American serviceman ever fought in defending its homeland. Period. Never. And don't give me, again, I already on record also, don't give me this Civil War baloney. They were basically two different, not two same people fighting each other. That is why it's called Civil War. But I mean, as I already stated, there's no culture in the US military to fight for defense of the homeland, with a single exception maybe of the US Navy, which indeed one of the main functions of it is defense of the United States proper from the attacks and from the assault from the ocean or the sea. That you can give it, but again, I mean, guys, remember how many people, civilians, have been killed in World War II in the United States? I can give you the number. I believe it was 4. The family which was killed by air balloon from Japan in Oregon. That's about it. So, and that's when you don't have education, you don't have culture, you don't have those social factors influencing you, you don't have basically a proper organization, and the whole organization of the United States is rigged to the expeditionary warfare. Some commands which, you know, you throw the first, and we know the operation. What is the operation of the United States? It's airspace, land operation. Basically, throw everything you've got on the people who are on the other side, try to explode their country from the inside by bribing, politicians and growing up the so-called opposition, and then you just roll in, triumphantly. Doesn't work like this, never did, really, except for the Iraq. And then I wrote this, and this is also very important to remember. What is, in the end, organization? Look at this. The explanation of the American growing irritation and, as a consequence, irrational self-defeating application of political pressure on any customer seeking, for example, Russian advanced military technology is rather simple. The dawning realization of the United States that is losing its conventional arms race to Russia and possibly to China due to its arrogance, myopia, and inability to learn and apply lessons based on hard facts and calculations rather than self-created mythology. And this is especially true in the field where the United States self-proclaimed to be the most advanced and powerful force in the world, aerospace. All that was done by dismissing the economic, technological, and geopolitical reality which formed in front of the very eyes of the American political class, which simply lacked the required orientation and tools to properly assess an unfolding real revolution in military affairs that the United States was neither ready nor willing to acknowledge. The increasing gap between indigenous, grossly propaganda-inflated exceptionalist military capabilities and the military technological revolution the U.S. peers, quote-unquote, were undergoing. Russia, in the world of the Lieutenant Colonel, was indeed adapted to the changing conditions better than the adversary. And this is what actually provides you with the, using Colonel McGregor title now, the margin of victory. You have the proper organization, you are adapted properly on the strategic, doctrinal, strategic, and of course operational level. And when you have especially operational history and operational school of thought of Russia, which is several times longer than the United States exists, you have a completely different culture, military culture and operational culture than you have in the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which do not, look at the situation with the American procurement programs. And of course the fact that when you look, and anybody who says that the United States can fight the real modern war, well, look at Afghanistan. And look at how the war in Iraq was won, quote unquote. So, and this is, guys, I mean, not even basically facing the real enemy. But again, it's I cannot emphasize enough. And in 2018, when I was writing this book, I was writing about the arms race being lost. It is lost now. It is fait accompli, and the gap will grow continuously, actually. And why it will grow, I spoke about this many times before. But look what I need to point out to you. As I already, not me alone, I mean, go to 2006 or 2007, Philip Giraldi, he wrote an excellent piece about neocons not being able to fight the war. And we are looking today at the American political class and much of military class. Those are incompetent people. They are good, apparatchiks. They know how to milk the system for the promotion. They know how to make money. They don't know how to run the country, economy. They don't know how to create modern weapon system, modern good, anything. And so, of course, they do not know how to fight a real war. And they're being taught right now this lesson. Many of them will not learn this lesson. They are incapable of, because this is what you get when you graduate primarily, especially humanities or liberal arts institutions, for example, in the United States, especially Ivy League. And of course, when the United States has zero, zilch specialists in Russia. There are none. I know what I'm talking about. All of them are shysters. And I can name those shysters sitting here just non-stop. You can find them constantly on Fox News, on CNN. Those people are not Russia specialists. And that is why the United States finds itself where it finds itself. And guess what? Suddenly, this neocon cabal, and they're one of the main rags, Newsweek, cannot hide this anymore. And look what they write. And suddenly we have their, just look at this title and say, hey, somebody finally kind of gets the message, right? It was yesterday, Newsweek, why U.S. war tactics are failing in Ukraine. First, it's not just tactics which is failing. Operationally, the United States is not in the same league as Russia. And again, scale, quoting Mr. Kavoli, four-star general, who said that, yeah, NATO simply never saw anything like this. And guess what? Even this Newsweek article begins to notice, and again, make no mistake, what Newsweek is the neocon cabal rag. Those people, I mean, they don't have real military experts there. They have propagandists like Mr. Petraeus, for example, or General Keane, or pretty much any American general who goes out and writes some kind of the garbage, basically in any kind of media, or speaks on TV channels and mainstream media. They don't have real military specialists who can understand. They don't have reference point. They are not taught this if they graduate from West Point and then into any kind of U.S. Army War College. They never saw anything like this. They never studied World War II properly, and then of course now they presented with the scale and massive industrial capacity of Russia, which is, yeah, even World Bank and IMF now to say it's the fifth economy of the world. Yeah, it's going to be the fourth pretty soon, believe me, and it's going to be larger than Japan. Well, in reality, it is larger than Japan already now, but that's a separate issue. And when you look at this, it's like, yeah, how do we go? How can we accept this fact? Well, they accept it finally. And here's we have this Newsweek article which begins to admit this. And here it is. They write about new NATO tactics quickly drilled into Ukrainian troops are failing because Ukraine doesn't dominate the skies. Analysts have said as Kiev troops appear to be revisiting familiar doctrine to press through dug-in Russian defenses. First, NATO doesn't have new tactics, and it's not new for Ukraine either. It's all baloney. The reason it is not for Ukraine either, because Ukrainian armed forces of Ukraine have been drilled and basically acquainted with this so-called tactics and operations by NATO since 2014. In reality, earlier than that. A huge number of the officer corps from Ukraine graduated actually US and European NATO military education facilities. So it's not new NATO tactics, and which allegedly fails because of the Ukrainian troops. No, you give credit where the credit is due, because Ukrainian troops are pretty tough. They are really tough, okay? And even those new recruits, they still kind of endure under the basically what is essentially a meat grinder. So this is the best proxy United States and NATO ever had. And so when you look at this about these tactics, this is the only tactics NATO has, because the NATO tactics operations are built around fighting third and fourth rate militaries. They don't understand how the real serious modern 21st century combined arms based on the extremely advanced ISR and eccentricity operates. They're just looking at it from the outside and try to learn some things. They will not learn. Believe me, I know what I am talking about. And so it is. Now they say, Ukraine's army has for now set aside US fighting methods and reverted to tactics it knows best, the Times wrote. So it's New York Times, and fact is, the reason they resorted back to the Soviet concept, which is essentially a Russian concept of the combined arms, is because it teaches you to fight under any conditions. The only condition under which NATO can fight without being completely annihilated is under what everybody knows, complete dominance in the air and space, which you can get only when you fight Iraq or Afghanistan. Well, if anybody remembers, Russia has the second or third, I believe, largest satellite constellation in the world after the United States and China, and in terms of military constellation, probably second. So, and now we get down, so to speak, to this Newsweek, and now they talk about this. There is one main reason for that. Experts have told Newsweek, NATO countries prize combined arms of all components of the military working together. No, they don't. They don't even know how, they wouldn't know how to run it. They don't know how to maneuver in the modern battlefield. They don't understand how it is, how to fight when your headquarters and command and control system is annihilated in the operational and strategic depth. They simply have no clue. They watched too much Hollywood and they believe that they know that they know how to fight. Again, just to give you an example, any single bunker of NATO in Europe, in and around Brussels, let alone standing in the open headquarters of NATO, in real war, they will be gone. They will be gone together with all personnel there. Their satellite constellation of the United States with all ISR, it will be gone in real war. By the way, why Russia will preserve its own satellite constellation, it's a whole other story, which is not the point of today. So, and here they write this same old, beaten to death cliche. For Ukrainian forces to succeed with Western NATO tactics, they need air superiority, which they do not have. I have another thing to disclose. No NATO officer, none, zero, including all this with top bottom, have any clue how to fight against modern state-of-the-art air defense system. They just don't. They never experienced anything like this. The only thing which they ever came close, and it was on the dawn of the advancement of the incredibly sophisticated air defense system, was obviously the United States fighting in Vietnam, where in 10 years it lost 10,000 of aircraft, among them fixed wing, 2,500 of them, and more than 800 of them have been shot down by the Vietnamese SAMs. So there you go. So make your own conclusions. Since then, air defense technologies just developed leaps and bounds, and Russia is, again, it's not Russian rah-rah, it's nothing special. I'm just saying that Russia is in the league of her own in this respect, and the United States has nothing even comparable. So good luck with those air forces to fighting extremely advanced ethnocentric air forces of Russian Federation and the air defense system, which makes American or European air defense system looks like the, as my friend Larry Johnson was stated, Nerf gun. So, and what can I say? And then, of course, Newsweek also talks about this thing like, for the Western approach to work effectively, you need all elements, and the key element of that is air power. According to retired British Army Colonel Hamish de Bretton Gordon, who previously commanded UK at NATO chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear defense forces. Well, he commanded the regiment or battalion, I don't remember. And so here the guy, I mean, just produces this garbage, which is, without Western aircraft to contest Russian control of the skies, Ukrainian troops are fighting with at least one hand tied behind their back, the Bretton Gordon told Newsweek. That, to me, is the most important piece here. No, it's not the most important piece here. And again, as I already stated, we can go back to my book, which I was quoting from, and Mr. Gordon, whatever, Bretton Gordon, he can read it and start basic study of the basic calculus and attrition models, and especially probabilistic nature of war and how the forces calculate and how they fight, especially in air defense, and especially if they are reduced to some sort of the what is called salvo model. But for you to understand who we are dealing with, who those people are, I spoke about this Gordon dude. Here it is. Here's this Colonel Hamish de Bretton Gordon, and look at this, his background. He attended Tonbridge School and has a degree in agriculture from the University of Reading. So, you know what? Yeah, after that he went to all those, whatever, war colleges. And each time I hear anything from some British guy, military British guy, talking about some operation strategies, how Ukraine has, has to fight. Well, let me put that very clearly for them. Ukrainian armed forces of the circa February 2022 were on order of magnitude better equipped and capable, not to speak about being larger order of magnitude than the British army. So when you listen to some British general or some British guy who actually has no clue what he's talking about. And yeah, you get those people with, degrees in agriculture. Nothing wrong with degree in agriculture. I love agriculture. We love to eat. I love Jethro Tull, so the band and the, agronome. So, but when you have these people, why would you be surprised then that everything goes haywire, that everything has been so miscalculated that United States and the combined West are literally looking now into the precipice of some horrendous economic and civilizational abyss. What can I say? Don't tell me that I didn't warn about it. And when you have even this cabal rag admitting this, then, oh man, something is coming. And, well, for those people who still continue to think that they can pass the judgment from the armchair or from the couch, that what Russia needs to do and how she should do or shouldn't do, you know what, guys, as you already know, that I hate C-traps. You know why I hate C-traps? I already explained it many times. I do not have the fullness of the information, and I don't like to BS people. So I'm talking only about things which I know. And in conclusion today, now, some people, my good friends, he asked me, can you speak a little bit about how they can communicate in their in the network, modern network, for example, among such airplanes like the completely net-centric tactical groups of such planes as Su-57, Su-35, and Su-30SMs. Let me show you something. Again, I'm not a specialist in this field. I know some things about it, but by far not all of them. But let me give you, again, excursus, so to speak, going back to the issue of the net-centric warfare. And if you look attentively at it's old mineral ME radar, which is used by the Project 1155 Udaloy class destroyers. It's already it's not obsolete, but it's old. Russians use now much more advanced radar. But if you look attentively at the mineral ME, which has been basically a very advanced for its time, for 80s, capable beyond the beyond the horizon, over the horizon targeting. So, but if you look at three parts, constitute parts of them, you can see yourself. It's called mineral ME3 data exchange and orientation radar. So it is the issue, in Russian it's called vzoi vzor. And what it means that the third part of this data exchange and orientation radar was designed to fight and command as a group. That means the basically exchange of the data, not just through the data links or communications. And we of course know the radio waves usually what they kind of propagate in the spheres, so to speak. But in this case, why they're using the narrow beam, they have been able to basically establish communications through the radar stations themselves, and they exchange the targeting and things of this nature. And that has been a long time ago. Nowadays, one of the two technologies which are going into the secure communications doesn't mean that it's 100% insured against the interference or suppression, but modern communication systems do communicate, for example, with the narrow beam. That means what? You cannot hear them from the outside, so to speak. I mean, I'm obviously giving a very simplified explanation. And the same goes for all those modern radar on, for example, Russian combat aircraft. They can communicate with the narrow beam between radar and through all kinds of the communication links, which make their communications fairly secure. How it is done, of course, nah, I don't know, guys. I really don't. It's a very advanced technology, and probably some people know how it works, and I'm sure people with a background in the cellular communications, they probably know some things about it. And this is what I wanted to tell you today about. And in conclusion, just to kind of finish it off, and here is the report of the Financial Times, as Izvestia reported today, that European companies have lost at least 100 billion euros in Russia since 2022. And this is at least, as Financial Times writes, and guess what? They probably will lose even more because Russia doesn't see much value in Europe anymore. And hey, two can play the game. They stole Russian, 360 billion allegedly of the, all kinds of property and funds and reserves. So, well, two can play the game. And this is what I wanted to tell you today. And guys, as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee and too. And this is what I wanted to tell you today, and I'll talk to you later, guys. Have a nice week. Bye bye.